Hello, and welcome to Bookish and Unbalanced, the podcast that talks all about the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful of mental health in the queer book community. I'm Adrienne J. Smith.
I'm Katie Trapp.
Are you? Are you sure? And I'm Amy Spencer.
It's because it was out of order and it was confusing her. We all have a state of mental health and we all neglect to talk about it, or worse yet, we're ashamed to talk about it, or worse yet, Ames calls you out on it. So let's break this down. Today, it's just us three, and we're going to be talking about burnout, which has been a hot topic lately in the mental health world. And by lately, I mean like the last 5 to 7 years. And we thought we'd talk about it today because Ames keeps accusing me of burning out and just popped in and said, yeah, it's great that we're talking about this topic. And he's like, is it the pot calling black? So we're going to get to that in a bit. But first, we're going to do a little check-in, catch up, whatever we're calling it. What's new in your world, Katie?
Are we talking book world or are we talking world?
Whatever world you want to talk about.
Well,
Which world is best right now? Like, are we? It depends on which one is like, the happier place.
well, it seems like we have been having some like health issues this week. So I guess the house is doing all right, but we could be better.
You survived.
We survived. My wife is home, so the schedule is wonky. Like I like to keep to a schedule, and my schedule has been disrupted.
I know, because we keep getting the texts. Can you make my wife go back to work? So I can have my writing time back. But you did start a new book, right?
I did. I started writing my first contemporary romance completely fish out of water. Like me, fish out of water, not the trope, fish out of water.
Is that your new trope?
No. No, I'm not doing that again. No, it's been fun. I'm doing a topic that I know pretty well, so I don't know. So far, I haven't got to that part where I dislike what I'm writing.
It'll come.
Thank you, Ames.
Yes, it will.
It comes with everyone, though. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's a genre that you're not familiar with, or you write in all the time, or how much you love the book and the characters and the storyline. Like, you will hit a point where you just go, I've had enough of you now. It's usually around the 50 to 75% mark, where then you start to think of, oh, but do you know who I really love? The characters in my next book. Let's think about them.
Yeah, I'm at that sweet spot where it's like I'm close to like 25-ish%. So the characters are still fun and new, and I don't want to throw my laptop out the window.
I envy you. And you have a date night tonight?
Yes. Yeah, we are going to go out to dinner and then go see a women's soccer game. It's going to be Louisville versus Houston, and I'm really excited about that. It's our first game in person this year. We haven't went yet.
It'll be fun. What about you, Ames? What's up in your world?
Well, in my real world, I've just gone back to work this week because the kids were off school last week and we took them on holiday. But I feel like we need to coin a new term for what is really a holiday, but when you have small children that need looking after, because the parents have no break whatsoever and it's twice as much work. Like, there needs to be a new term for that because it's not a holiday. So yeah, I've been getting back into the swing of things. And it's been pretty slow going this week. in every aspect. I do want to throw my laptop out the window because it's refused to work tonight. So you may notice that I'm having to do this on my phone because my laptop doesn't want to do anything at all. Which is going to really help with the, writing the book that I'm writing, because I have hit that 50% mark where I'm already thinking about the next characters in my next book.
I was gonna say, is it time to get a new laptop?
Do you know the really annoying thing? Totally bought the other half one last month, didn't I, for her birthday? And I should have forethought about that. Bought myself one and just handed down the old one. So I might have to. We'll see how it goes. What about you, AJ?
I finished the book that I was stuck at the 75% mark for what, 6-8 weeks? In the one smutty scene that I was trying to avoid with my entire life for 6-8 weeks. So yeah, I did finish that book and I sent it off to the editor, and the editor is going through it very quickly, and it should probably be back to me in 5 days. So that was a really quick turnaround, considering I sent it off in chunks and it's coming back to me whole, but it means my turnaround time is very quick. That's the book that's supposed to release in August. So
And this is the book which you were writing for the bet, which started in January and ended in March.
yeah, that book where I kind of hit the end of the bet and just stopped working on it for a very long time, which we can talk about when we get to our subjects today. But yeah, I'm about to start 2 other books because we're doing another bet. So yeah, I'm about to start 2
And
other.
you didn't learn the first time round about, I don't know, giving yourself a manageable amount in that. It's almost like you don't want to win.
I did, because I'm supposed to finish these books in my schedule in 6 weeks, and we decided 8 weeks for the bet, so that gives me a 2-week grace period.
Yeah, that's totally how it's going to work.
Yep. One is a co-write though, so that helps. And then one is just my own book, my October release. This is what happens when you get far behind. You cram everything back into it. In terms of life though, life is getting busy, and I feel like a soccer mom for the first time. Shuttling kids from one event to the next event. And I think it's because they're one right after the other. So my daughter goes from 2 to 4, and then my son goes from 4:30 to 6:30. And so it's not all at the same time where I just drop one, drop the other, pick up one and pick up the other. It's 4 hours of my time instead of an hour of my time. So that's a fun adventure. And I'm about to take vacation in June, the end of June. And I'm very excited for that. And then I'm taking a second trip in July for a funeral, but we're tagging in a few days of vacation to go back to Montana. And I haven't been to Montana since I got married 10 years ago. So I'm excited for that. That's all I really got in my life. But yes, let's talk about burnout. Ames.
I don't know what. I mean, it happens to all of us, right? But I don't think people have ever really. I think, like you said, it's quite a new thing to talk about and admit. I wonder whether it's spoken more openly about in the writing community, because there is maybe a large proportion of people who are doing it where writing isn't their primary job. Like, we don't necessarily have the freedom to admit that we're burnt out, or to take the time to rest when it's a 9 to 5 Monday to Friday job, or however your days fall. not saying that that's necessarily right, but I feel like we maybe plow through it a little bit more when it's the, you know, the job which is our main source of income versus writing where it's very, a lot of people try to fit it in where they can as it is, and it's also a job where we have a deadline, but it's not necessarily as micromanaged as a 9 to 5 job. Do you know what I mean? Like, we don't have, you know, a thing to do for a meeting tomorrow or whatever. We, you know, it's, I need to get this many words done for this very far date in the future, and we always just try to constantly catch up. And I think because of that, we're maybe a little bit more open about admitting that I'm just not doing anything at the minute.
I think I've seen a lot of like conversation too, just surrounding being overworked, right? And I don't really, obviously, because I wasn't alive way back when, I don't really know how to compare it, right? To is like growing up, being this age, coming into the work community in the 2010s, you know, you have to have more than one job in order to survive. And so it's pretty typical, I think, for people to have more than one job, and you don't take that rest time, right? My husband likes to tease me that the actual only day that I take off from any job, for both jobs together, is Christmas Day. And he's not wrong. I mean, I'm typically always doing something for one of my jobs, and that it doesn't help that I don't have like a 9 to 5 job. I don't have set hours for my day job. I have hours that I'm in the office, but then a lot of my work happens outside of that as well. And I think, yeah, I don't know. I don't even really know what I'm trying to say, other than I think that there's a difference between the way it used to be, the way it is now. And there is a lot of conversation surrounding that, but I'm not sure there's any solution to that either. But I think it's really contributing to burnout in general. What does burnout look like though? Like for each of us, it's going to look different for everybody. But what are some signs that you know you're heading toward it?
I don't think I've hit like major burnout yet. I know what burnout feels like in like the mental health field. We would talk about burnout because I think maybe you notice it more, or maybe it was just because we were in mental health and talked about stuff like that. But I think sometimes we don't really even know, like we just slowly accept these little symptoms of burnout, and it's really hard to pinpoint them unless you're just stopping and like self-reflecting. And then how often do we stop and actually self-reflect? Like, I'm going to stop and take the time to do a check-in with myself.
Who has the time for that? Like, but yeah, I mean, you're writing a character, right, that has burnout in this contemporary romance.
Yeah, an addiction counselor, which I've done. And she is completely burnt out. Like, she's not finding joy in anything she's doing right now, and she's overextending herself, and it's like one of those things where you start putting a little bit of yourself into the books again. I'm remembering what it was like to be in those situations where you're just bogged down. You go in and you sit down at your desk and nothing. Like,
Yeah,
you're so overwhelmed.
I don't get the feeling of overwhelmed. I get the feeling of disorganization. So, and it's probably similar, but it's more like I know I have all of these things to do, but I cannot figure out a good entry point into them. And it's not that I'm overwhelmed by the work. I don't think it's too much work. It's definitely reasonable, but like my brain just will not function to find the entry point to start the day. And when I do, it's not the best entry point to be able to start the day.
Mhm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think
like that's what it
it's-
feels like for me.
Yeah, for me, it's like walking in quicksand. Like it's just too hard to get moving. Because then there's just no motivation to move and
Yeah,
to start doing all the things that you need to.
yeah, or I find the little things to do because I know that I can accomplish them quickly. And then I just keep finding the little things to do because they're easier to get done. And I feel like I'm accomplishing something, but I'm ignoring like this bigger project, right, that I need to get done. So in the author world, that would amount to I'm fiddling with my newsletters, I'm fiddling with covers, blurbs, all of that stuff. And what I'm not doing is I'm not finishing that smutty scene that I should have finished ages ago, which if I sat down would really only take me an hour of time. But it feels much bigger than spending an hour on my newsletter.
Right. So, like when you have burnout, and I think this might be a little off topic, but I don't know. If you have burnout, like a lot of those feelings and symptoms are the same as if you were depressed. So, what happens if you have both, or you're trying to you're trying to separate?
I'm not sure the two are all that different, in all honesty.
I think it just depends. I think you can be burnout and not depressed, but you're still experiencing the same symptoms.
I'm not sure I agree with you on that, in all honesty. I'm not saying that you're like kind of rock bottom depressed, right? But I think,
You're at the top of a slippery slope, I think.
yeah,
Like, I think burnout can be like a precursor almost. Like, I could get into that burnout state where I just don't know where to. I'm very much like you, AJ. Like, I struggle. I will literally sit and look at whatever I like, sit in front of the computer or anything, and I just can't figure out where to start. It's just all too, it's like all a little bit, it's almost like it's just a little bit mixed up and hazy, and I don't know where the end of the string is to be able to like just start to pull to just like unravel it all and work out what I need to do. And I think it can, and it has been like that first just like loose footing at the top of a slippery slope. And sometimes it all it takes is just to put something to one side and take a step back and just to like spend however long it takes just to recalibrate and let it all settle, and then you can look at it and it looks organized again. And sometimes it can just snowball, because I think the next thing which falls after the burnout is the guilt and the panic about the fact you're not doing the things which you need to be doing. And then that just snowballs into something so much bigger, which is then twice as hard to get out of.
yeah, and I think too, for me, because I'm very conscious of time and time management, I try really hard to build in a lot of flexibility in my time in terms of like due dates and stuff, so that when things hit, I have the ability to say, I don't have to do this right now. Like it can wait a week or it can wait a month. And I have the actual flexibility to be able to do that to avoid that like steep slide down. Like I did that with Nina and I were supposed to write Battle Fluke, the third mermaid book, in April. We can now see we're recording this on June 7th and we haven't started it. It is outlined. but it was my decision in my conversation with her to be like, look, I really need to finish this other book. I can't think about even starting another book until I finish that book. It's that important. So can we push it back? And she was like, yeah, that's fine. Which helps having people to also do that with. But having that built-in flexibility, that book doesn't release until January. Like I have the time to be able to do that.
Do you feel pressure when you're co-writing to, like, you're going to let the other person down if you don't meet those deadlines?
Yes. Which is part of the motivating factor of co-writing, right? It's kind of what makes it easier than writing on your own, because you do have a bit of that external pressure of, oh, Neen's expecting me to have this chapter before she wakes up this morning, and she wakes up this morning for her, which is typically between 1 and 2 p.m. my time. So I have until 1 to 2 p.m. to finish up this chapter. You all experienced my messages yesterday when I was like, I have until 1 to 2 p.m. to get this to her, because that's when she wakes up. I can screw around for the 8 hours before, but now I have an hour to get this done.
That's where she builds flexibility into a work day, you see. That's what the flexibility for is, just to screw around before she hits her deadline.
But yeah, I think it's really important to kind of have a wider view of what it is we're doing in terms of being able to be flexible in those things. Because burnout in the author world and in the day job world does affect the personal world. Like there's no way that that doesn't affect my family life. And I need to be conscious and aware of how that affects my family life, and then make sure to prevent that so that I can be my best self for them. Not for you guys. It doesn't matter for you guys. We just do a podcast.
It's fine. We get whatever we get. It's okay.
You get the, oh crap, I need to edit the podcast and it's 9 p.m. and it's supposed to go out at 3 a.m. So guess what
But
I'm
we
doing?
did say this. We said this a few weeks ago. I think me and you, AJ, were admonishing each other for something, and Katie came into the chat and just went, hang on, you told the other one that like literally a week ago. And I said the entire basis of our friendship is just telling the other one that they're doing something wrong. They need to stop doing it. You're too tired. You're overworked. You're like nearing burnout. And we'd go, yeah, I know. And then the next week we swap, and the other one tells the other one it. Like, let us.
Do you remember what it was? Because I do.
I know.
It was about eating, because we're both really bad about eating, and we tend to forget to eat like all day. And you had forgotten to eat, and I was like, you shouldn't do that. You should take your lunch with you. Ames, you need to be better about eating. And I'm sorry, I went to Denver, and like every 5 minutes I was getting texts. Have you eaten at this conference that you're at? Because
Which is ironic, because what did I do this week? I forgot my lunch and then didn't eat all day. And you got a text going, I feel really wobbly now.
yeah. And then I wrote back and I was like, you should have taken food with you. Like, why are you doing this?
I mean, in my defense, I'd packed the food. I just left it in the fridge that morning.
And that's what DoorDash is for. I believe I also said that. But having that accountability with friends and family, I think, can help too. You know, my husband's pretty good at saying, you're really stressed right now. Like, why are you stressed? Let's figure this out. And I'm like, I don't want to figure it out because I know where that's going, but that's a different story, a different podcast. That's AJ avoiding, but yes. That's what he's been doing, because I haven't been sleeping. And it was because of stress, because of burnout.
This is my week to sit here looking smug. So.
Because you did sleep.
There does seem to be a lot of like supporting each other and not necessarily our own selves in the chat.
Oh yeah, we're terrible at like applying our own medicine. We're awful at it.
Like, I had the two of you on chat telling me to go to the doctor, and then I had my wife beside me doing the same thing, and I'm like, it's an echo. It is an echo. It's just,
You didn't know that you inherited 2 extra wives when you started this podcast.
I didn't. That's all right. I think we could do worse.
Well, that's the whole basis of friendship, right? You should be able to say that to your friends, and you should be able to hear it from your friends. I was gonna say, when your
Friends
friends and
are-
your spouse team up to say the same thing, then you really should probably do it. this way.
Yeah, you can ignore one of them and go, you just don't know what you're talking about. And you can ignore the second one, but when they get together, then you start to go, oh, no. Maybe they have a point. That we don't say that out loud. Definitely not to both of them. Definitely.
It's too much
The
power.
worst bit, the only thing worse than hearing them both go, I think this is the problem, is then them both going, I told you so, after you admit that they're right.
Swallow that pride a little bit.
But well, that brings us back to the bet, right? The accountability bet. You know, that's why we made a second bet this time, bragging rights and marketing. So the losers
Yeah.
have to do marketing for the winner. And yeah, you know, we made the bet to try and get some accountability for everybody, so Katie can finish her book, so Ames can finish their book, and so that I can stupidly finish 2 books, as we do in our world. And we have 8 weeks to accomplish it. We started it yesterday. Again, it's June 7th, so that ends, what did we say, August 3rd?
First.
First, yeah.
Which seems really close.
Seems a long way away. I
Yeah.
think it seems like,
It seems like it's happening next week. I'm not
but
gonna
I still in my head think we're in like around February, March time, because this year has gone far too quickly.
This year has gone very quickly.
Can't believe we're in June already,
But finding that accountability to help you pull you out of the burnout. In our case,
yeah.
it's piling on more work, but
I do
instead
think
of-
it's like a really delicate balance though sometimes about how to pull yourself out of that burnout. Like sometimes it is just needing that accountability and that kind of like someone to kick you up the butt to go, just sort yourself out. Like, and also like in like this case of the vet, like it's given us we've each got a clear goal as well. Like all that other stuff which bogs us down and we used to distract ourselves. I mean, it's still there, but we've now got a main focus for the next few weeks. So hopefully that will kind of like drive our attention into the right direction. But I do think like it's a really fine line to walk sometimes in terms of just trying to push through and go, because like when we're in that state, right, we still know what our main focus should be. Like we know it's the book, we know it's finishing the story. And I think it can, if it's not the right thing, if it's not the right approach to take, sometimes it just makes the situation worse. I'm not saying that the bet's going to make the situation worse at all, but like again, it adds to that kind of like, you know, that next step of the feeling of guilt and failure and just awful negative feelings, which we all kind of get sucked into sometimes because we're still not doing it.
yeah,
We all know what a fun place that is.
yeah, it gives me something to focus on, right? So I can say, well, I got to get this chapter written today. So that's where I'm going to start.
Yeah, I broke my I estimated the word count and I broke it down into how many words I needed a day. And it feels a lot better knowing that, because it instead of like, I need to have this book done, it's like, I need to have no less than 1,400 words or something like that. So I don't know, it just makes it more manageable. And then it is kind of more fun to think of, like, just a little competing, I think makes it less
Katie's household
jobby.
is the competitive household, as we all know. So she's winning this one.
She's going to start utilizing talk to text much sooner in this bet.
But wait, I have a question, because you said instead of just knowing that you have to finish it by like X date, do you not set a daily goal for yourself?
In my head, kind of, but there's nothing going to hold me to it. So like this makes me more, I don't know, likely, because there is a set date, and it's not just in my head that I have something done. Like,
so I asked that because Ames and I were kind of talking about this yesterday when I was talking about that I need to hire a PA and to help with manage my workload a bit more.
The little bits. All that stuff which she uses to procrastinate and not do the book, she's now hiring someone to do for her. So she's got no excuse whatsoever.
oh, ouch.
It's true though.
Makes me
It's
wonder
true.
what your next thing's going to be. Like, what is your next what's it?
Project?
What will you
Avoidance
use now?
tactic.
Oh, my
Yeah.
next distraction. It's gonna
Procrastinate.
be.
Yeah.
I can tell you what it's gonna be already. It's gonna be subscriptions and direct sales. Because I've been wanting to do it for a while and I just literally do not have the time to even begin to figure it out and manage it. And I need somebody to take the crap, the little crap. It's not crap, it's very important
Fill it
crap.
with more.
Yeah. So that I can have more time to do other things. But that is how a business works when it grows. So it makes sense. Anyway, I don't even know where I was going with that now. Thank you.
Daily goals. We were talking about little
Daily
goals.
goals.
Little.
Yeah. And you were like, that was kind of
Was
what
it
we
that
talked
thing
about
I said?
yesterday.
Yes. Was it when I said about like what you need to do is like write a list and break that list down into every tiny little thing which actually falls into it, because sometimes we forget what the little tasks are which make up the big tasks.
No, that's not where I was going with it at all.
I know, but that was very wise words from me.
Those
I
were
think
very
she was
wise
about
words
to-
from you.
I think she was about to get on to me for not having a goal.
No, well, it was about self-motivation. And because I set myself really strict goals and I'm really motivated to achieve those goals, right? So I have a daily calendar where I say I'm going to do this and I break it up by chapter. I don't do word count, I do by chapter. So I'm going to finish like chapter 20 on today, and I'm going to finish, actually today it's 3 chapters, it's 26, 27, 28. And I have written this much of chapter 26. So we're really going to hit chapter 26. But I break it up by chapter and I have an actual calendar. It's all color coded and it's pretty, and it tells me exactly what I'm writing on what day. But like when it comes to hiring somebody to work with me, I also need somebody who is like that weirdly detailed. And
Equally as
self-motivated.
anal, I think was what she was going for.
I was going to say that, but
Yeah.
I didn't want to say that on the podcast. So thank you, Ames.
I'll say it, it's fine.
But it's interesting to me to just see how different people work, because everybody works differently, right? Like to me, that is very helpful to keeping me on track. And Neen has started writing like a to-do list of crap she needs to do every day after I yelled at her for not getting some stuff done. Welcome to the world of co-writing. And so she writes her like a daily to-do list of stuff she needs to get done. And I was like, that's not a bad idea. At my day job, I write a weekly to-do list and then I check it off as I go because I have some regular things that I need to get done every week, and then I have weird things that I need to get done every week. But I don't do that for the author world. I just do like the chapter stuff that I have to do. So that might be a way for me to help combat some of this burnout aside from taking on more work.
I'm getting anxious just listening to you list off your lists. Like
Do you not
I don't,
list? Are you not a lister?
no, I struggle. I struggle with
I
that.
love a good list.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I do. And sometimes I'm so bad that I'll do something which wasn't on the list. And I bet AJ's done this at some point. If you do something that's not on the list, I've written it on the bottom of the list to cross it off just to get that dopamine hit at the end of the day. That's pretty good.
I have done that, but it's not a regular practice of mine because there's things that I don't put on, like for my weekly work list, there's some like regular routine things that I put on there and regular routine things I don't put on there. And I don't add them to cross them off.
see, I even struggle with grocery lists. During my childhood, it was so chaotic. My mother would continuously write lists and leave them, and we were expected to do them, and then she would yell, and then you never knew who you got when she was yelling, like nice mom, mean mom, whatever. And it was just constant list of this and this and this. And I like when I see one, it just oh, like I think it's childhood trauma. I think it's childhood trauma. I'm just now using a grocery list, like to do my meal planning.
See, I have
And
to
that's
do a
taken a
grocery
long
list
time.
because I need to stay within budget. And if I don't have a grocery list, I will not be in budget. But you would die at my calendars. I have like 4 different calendars.
You know,
I have the one on the wall, I have my work calendar, I have my author calendar, and then I have a whole family calendar where everybody's supposed to be at what time they're supposed to be there. And that is also color coded to each individual person.
I have reminders on my phone, and I'm okay with those. Like they'll just pop up and tell me today is this post, today is this, today is that. But it doesn't.
I have done that this week.
How
I
is
have
that
done
not
that this
list,
week.
Katie?
Because I don't see it in a list form. It just pops up on my phone. So
Well,
I
they
don't have to
make-
like sit there and check it off.
They make to-do lists that have that, you know.
I'm not a to-do list expert.
It's
So
an app and it just pops up and it tells you what you're supposed to do when. I'm fancy. My
outline.
to-do lists are on sticky notes that I sticky to my calendar.
See, I have a weekly planner that a whole book of, and this week I've actually achieved everything on it as well, which felt pretty good.
That looks like a complicated list. I'm not
I
gonna lie.
really did try for a planner this year, but I just really I can't wrap my head around it.
Anyway, we kind of got off topic on lists, burnout, but I think, I think how individuals work, right? How each person works is going to depend. Like burnout looks different for each person, right? So how each person works is going to depend on how you pull yourself out of burnout to get back on track to where you're supposed to be.
Do you like, I guess it's kind of one of them things where you're hit with burnout, and I think sometimes the first time is the worst time because you don't like what you were saying, Katie, like you sometimes don't notice what's going on until it's too late. And I guess in theory we should all be a little bit more proactive and better about handling it later on. Like, do you think, I don't know, I guess I'm asking you now, do you think you're better at it? I'm gonna know the answer to this already. Do you think you're better at it the more times you hit burnout at stopping it before it gets too bad? AJ?
Why me? I think, yeah. I think you do get better at it. I think you get more self-aware of it. And I think that first time when you hit it really bad and it takes a lot longer to pull yourself out of it, you do learn some skills to get out of it quicker, right? So yeah, I do think, like anything, it's a learning experience. Now, the real question is, how many times have I hit burnout? That's a very good question that I'm not sure I can actually answer, which means it's over 5.
What's the longest you've taken from like stepping away from writing?
5 years. Now, I think the writing portion was 4.5 years. And then by the time the first book was published, after that break was about 5 years. It was from 2017, March, April-ish of 2017, all the way to November of 20. Maybe it wasn't 4 or 5 years. It must
Oh,
have
you're
been,
making her do math now. Look.
I know, I have to do math. It was definitely about 4 years. I want to say it was from, it must have been like slowed down at the end of 2016 and into early 2017. And then I picked back up. I tried to pick it back up in November of 2019. And I got halfway through a book in like June of 2019, I think. And then I started another book in November of 2019 for Nano. I got like halfway through it. It's the first time I've lost NaNoWriMo, or the second time, and I was not very happy about it. And so then by early 2020, we knew we were moving from Kansas to Wyoming. And so I didn't do anything during that time. And then once we moved here, it really picked back up again. There's a lot of circumstances as to why there was such a large gap, and it wasn't just burnout that contributed to that. But that is the longest time that I've taken a break. So what is that? 2017, 18, 19, 2020? About 4 years. If you would like, I can delve more into what the circumstances were, but
I think Katie's just sat there making notes for her next book right now. Like, I think she's just used the entire podcast as research purposes.
maybe on what not to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a good break in there. But coming back, I came in quick once I finally got going in 2020 and wrote about 12 books in 3/4 of a year. All those plot ideas didn't stop for 4 years. They just kept piling up.
I think that's the thing, right? Like, I find myself sometimes, like, I know when I'm in that point of burnout, like, I know what I want to see on the page. I know what's happening next. I know what I want to write. But it's this weird thing of like, I just sit in front of the screen and none of the words come out, which is even more frustrating sometimes than like, because it's like a weird disconnect between my brain and my hands. Yeah, I chose my words carefully there.
Selena.
But yeah, that's a really weird thing, because I think sometimes people just think like it's just like a complete blank slate when it happens. Like, you can't, think of anything, and that's not actually true. Like, I think sometimes like your brain, the ideas are still ticking over. It's just the push to actually get them out, which is difficult.
Well, and this is my whole theory behind writer's block, right? I don't believe in writer's block. I really don't. I think when you're not writing, it's because of something else. It's not because the words just won't come to you. It's because you're burnt out. It's because you're depressed. It's because you've got 20 million family things going on. It's because, I don't know, your cat just died and you're grieving. Like, it's normal to have emotions and to react to the world around you. And it's normal to not be able to do the normal things that you can do when those things happen. And I think people just need to be graceful with themselves when those things happen and understand that, yeah, I'm not going to be writing right now because I'm thrown into this grief moment, or I am in the middle of a big move across the country and I need to concentrate on that, or I just had a baby and I need to adjust to this new role and what that means and the immense lack of sleep that comes with that, and relearning how to function on lack of sleep. And so I think when people say they have writer's block, I'm always like, well, what is the cause behind what you are calling writer's block? What is it that's pushing you to not be able to do what you think you should be able to do? And then just be graceful with yourself when you figure those things out. Sometimes just figuring them out can help get over the hump of writer's block, in quotes, because again, I don't really believe in writer's block. But I think really just being graceful with yourself and allowing yourself to just experience what is happening in the world.
I feel like this one of these conversations is going to come back and bite us when one of us goes, oh, I've not written anything for ages. Well, may I recommend you go look at our podcast episode on burnout and get some advice from us.
Okay, folks, that's all for our latest episode of Bookish and Unbalanced. We want to thank our listeners for tuning in and listening to our rambles. Boy, did we. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons to keep up to date with our latest episodes. Until next time, take care out there, and remember, we are all in this together.